How's it going? This is Chris Hernandez, and I'm going to be creating a short 2-minute, 3-minute video or screencast on creating a 2D video game background. Now, before I get started, I am using OBS for Windows, which is Open Broadcast Software. It is totally free and it's easy to set up. You set up your scenes down here, and then you set your sources up for audio input and display capture. Now let's get started really quick. I have some examples that my students have made. So one of my students designed this sunny day background for his video game. This is another student's background for their midday evening where the sun is setting, and this is a final background done by another student, which is a nighttime background with the sun rising. Now, this student had more time during the week to complete his assignments as he has more sessions with me, which is why it looks more polished. So we're going to go ahead and apply some of the techniques that I use to teach him how to create this background. So first and foremost, we're going to be using Affinity Designer. If you don't know what Affinity Designer is, you can head on over to affinity.serif.com and just click on the Designer tab. This will bring you to the Affinity Designer homepage. It is available for Mac, Windows, and also for the iPad. This software, I swear by it. It's a really great software. It's a lot like Adobe Illustrator. It's basically just a vector editing program, and I use it at work and also with my students. So once you go ahead and you purchase that, it is pretty fair in price. It is around $39 to $50 depending on the operating system and depending on whether there's a sale going on or not. So once you go ahead and you purchase a copy for yourself, you can go ahead and open it. So we're just going to go to File, we're going to create a new file, and we're going to make sure that we edit this right here. So this is going to be, I'm just selecting at random here. We're going to do 3700 by 1700, or maybe we'll lower this just a little bit for the page width. We'll make it 3500. Again, this is totally random. So here we are. Let's zoom out a bit so you can see the actual page. Okay, so the first thing we're going to make here is our ground. So we're going to go ahead and select our rectangle tool. You can press M or you can select it. We're going to drag it straight across the screen. And then of course this is going to be our ground, it's going to be our dirt. So we're going to look for a brownish hueish color in the color panel, which is going to be around here a bit, so like reddish orange. And we're going to select a shade of brown. Okay, now once we're done with that, we're going to deselect that. You can press escape. You can also hit the move tool, click outside. Excuse me. And now we're going to create the top layer, which is the grass. So we're going to go ahead and drag this straight across again. And then we're going to switch the color palette tool over here to where it's green. We're going to select a nice bright green color. Again, the theme here is 2D video game background. So we're going to go ahead and select that. Maybe, I just want to create it a little bit darker. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take the rectangle tool and we're going to create our final last rectangle. I know this may seem to most designers very redundant, and there are a lot of other easier steps that you can take, but it's easier for me to apply these techniques to my students and because they understand it better than going through really like different techniques. So we're going to go ahead and go to the effects panel, and we're going to do a gradient overlay. Okay, what I did back here was I flipped our layer around so that the black is going up into white. So now we're going to select the gradient, we're going to select the black end, we're going to select the color, and we're actually going to make this blue, and you're going to see why in a second, but we're going to make it on the darker end of blue. So kind of like around here, okay? Then we're going to select our white end, and we're going to color that completely black. We're going to make that entirely black, so it's kind of like a blue fading into black. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to close our gradient tool. You can hit V, or again you can select the move tool, click outside. There we go, we're getting started. So the next thing we're going to do is come down over here to where our arrow tool is. We're going to find our star tool. Now we're not going to make that many stars. Make sure that you have a white color selected from the palette, and we're going to do a few. Hold shift to keep your stars consistent, kind of like this. Again, we're not going to make them too big. There we go. And we're just going to add a few more. Again, remember not to make them too big because we're working on making them look distant here. Okay, so that should be enough. Now, my student wanted to add a rising sun. So what we did was we selected kind of like an orangish color. Actually, I'm going to backtrack. I just changed the color of our star. So I'm going to backtrack, and then I'm going to create our sun here. So now I'm going to put our sun to the bottom because it's rising, and we're going to change the color of our sun to kind of like an orangish, but like a dull orangish color, not dull, but a kind of more reddish color to insinuate that it's rising. And then we're also going to add an outer glow to it from here, from the effects panel. Then we're going to go back to layers, and we're going to drag this all the way to the bottom. And then we're going to take our background and we're going to drag that to the bottom. So it looks like that. Okay, our background is coming along nicely here. So what we do want to do is we want to take the ellipse tool, and we want to make sure that we have the color white selected. You always got to make sure that your colors are selected. Okay. Now, you see what I did there? We're going to zoom in a little bit really quickly. We're going to make this a little bit smaller. Okay. And then what I want you guys to do is just hold Alt and just duplicate a little bit. So now this gives the impression of far off stars in the distance. So just do that a few more times. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all my ellipses. I'm going to hold Alt, and I'm just going to copy them like so. Okay, so we're finishing up a little bit here, and I'm just going to keep copying and kind of just dropping them down in random places. They don't have to be any particular place. You can just drop them in random places. Okay, we're going to hit the Z key, or you can hit the zoom button over here. We're going to hold Alt. We're going to zoom out a little bit. We still aren't done, so we're going to select our first ellipse. Select all the way down. Select the V key, and we're going to do one more big Alt drag, or not one more, but maybe a couple more. Just like this. And you want to make sure that it's like kind of evened out. Okay, so now we have our starry background, the sun's rising. If you wanted to, my student wanted there to be grass, so if you want to make grass, we can go ahead and select, use the eyedropper tool, the color picker tool, and select the green grass. That way it blends in, and then we can just hold shift and make triangles throughout. They kind of look like trees a little bit. And we're just going to do that a few times. Okay. And there we go. We have a video game 2D background for a 2D platformer game. This is typically what I show my students to do, and then they use their own kind of thought processes and like whatever they remember about what skylines look like or whatever they want their background to look like, and they kind of draw from scratch like that. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this tutorial, and that has been it.